The young kids, they make a mistake of trying to follow something that pays the most money. Like they'll research a job in the market and this pays this much per hour and that pays that much per hour. The money, you'll get burnt out within a year if you're not passionate about it. So what I tell kids to do is write down your top 4 things that you love, that are hobbies or whatever. Then research which of those markets pay what money over a trajectory of your career owning a business. See which ones are in decline or stagnating, and see which ones are in high demand. Go for the one that you love that's in high demand, that's growing, and keep the other 3 as hobbies.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
Hey you, this is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough, and yes, my voice is all froggy because I'm just getting over a cold, but that does not stop a podcast from being recorded, right, Joel? So Joel and I were supposed to record last week, and we didn't cancel because we were sick, although I guess we were both sick from what I can hear. But now we're here today specifically, guys, to give you some really good information on triple net. So Joel Owens, welcome to the show with Triple Net Investing. And why don't you give us a real quick background as to how you got from babyhood to mastery in your field?
Yeah, so I started out in the restaurant business. I worked for Mike Orcutt, Cowabunga Incorporated. He's the largest Domino's Pizza franchisee in the country. He owned commissaries, helped grow the brand to what it is today with one of the founding brothers of Domino's Pizza. And then basically I worked as a manager there, and then I opened my own pizza restaurant. I didn't enjoy the hours that much. A friend of mine owned a landscaping company, and he was going to have to add a crew because it was growing so much, or he could sell the company. So he decided to sell the company. He got into real estate. I'd always watched the videos as a kid, the Carlton Sheets, all that kind of stuff, and always have been interested in real estate. So then I went and I got my license, and I was driving part-time for Domino's, and one of my older friends, he had been left a laundry shop on the main road. And a developer approached him to buy that out because they were assembling a bunch of pieces to do a Publix and a whole bunch of 600,000 square feet of retail. And so he wanted me to look it over. And so I met with the developer, looked it over. The developer contacted me afterwards and said, usually on these contracts, people might catch 2 outs or 3 outs. And if they're really good, they might catch 4 outs or 5 outs. And it's like, we put 11 outs in our contract. You caught every single one of them. We never had that happen before. And so they brought me on to assemble the other pieces of land. And so I assembled those other pieces of land over the next few years, learning the development side of the process and the meetings and the strike prices for the total project, and then meeting with a bunch of sellers over a bunch of period of time to get the contracts done. And then after that, the economic cycle changed to where you could buy for less than it cost to build. And so I went to selling bigger apartment buildings and did that for a while. Didn't really care for the residential space. I've owned apartment buildings before. I just don't care for the amount of work that's involved and the headache with that. And then I got into retail, the triple net. And since I had owned a business before and had been in the food space, it was a natural fit for me to like working with and evaluating businesses that people bought and they paid them the rent. And that was kind of my in. And I've been doing it 21 years and own my own company. I own properties, and I help people on the buyer side buy properties in triple net.
So your books that you have available, it really, I think, speaks to something that I'm passionate about, which is the grit it takes to be a long-term investor. You've got Triple Net Riches, the road to passive real estate wealth, but you also have the, father saved by my son, forgave the father, saved by my son. I think that it sounds like that you're real connected with that. It takes a mindset, it takes a sense of determination to be an investor, whether it's residential, commercial, or triple net.
Yeah, I think, I've talked with thousands of millionaires over the years, billionaire families, deal with ultra high net worth people. And I didn't come from anything. My dad was killed in a car accident when I was around 15 years of age, and we had a house that was falling apart, and I was having to do everything. It's just me and my mom against the world. And, when you don't come from any money, you're on food stamps, everything else, you don't have much money to eat, you come from, poverty. Um, the mass people in the United States, a lot of them think about that first million because they think that that's going to solve all their problems, because they live where they work to pay their bills every week to survive, basically. But, the first million is the hardest to make, because you're trying to, pay off cars, pay off credit card debt, change your whole mindset, way of thinking of how to grow money and how to live. And so it takes a total shift to do that. And it's very uncomfortable, and it's hard, because a lot of people, they work a job all week. They want to get that dopamine hit of going to Walmart or going to the movies or whatever to de-stress. And they don't have the money to save up to snowball that investing, because it takes a lot of sacrifice. Once you make the first million, and you paid your cars off, and you've kind of achieved your burn rate, what I call it. So like your necessities, if it takes you $40,000 a year to live, if you invest to where you're getting $40,000, theoretically you can retire, as long as you keep up with inflation at that point, and you're free. People think once they make this money that you don't do anything after that. And it's not that, your stress changes to something else. As you age, you got to do estate planning. You got to worry about your health. You got to worry about your kids. You got to do a lot of tax planning. You're making millions of dollars a year or more with your investments and your business and everything. You have to constantly optimize that to save on the taxes. So your stress doesn't go away. It just changes to something else. Once you've gone through that journey, to where you're not worth tens of millions, you go higher. There's a question with people of like, how much is enough? Like most people don't worship money. They love the idea of being financially free to live the life they want to on a daily basis that gives them happiness and joy. And what amount of money that's going to take depends on what their life goals are and what they're trying to do with their life. And so I take a very different approach. A lot of these listing brokerages, the way it works in triple net is they have a team. And so if the commission is 100,000, 50,000 will go to the parent company. Well, you have a senior director on the team, a director, and a junior agent. The remaining 50,000, the senior director might get 20-something thousand. The junior agent might get $8,000 out of that 100,000. So they're running hard on a hamster wheel, and they're not wealthy just to keep making the money, to keep the lights on. And so oftentimes when a buyer contacts these people, the buyer doesn't know anything about triple net. They're trying to learn about the space. They might be successful. A lot of my clients are surgeons or doctors, high-level corporate executives, medium to large business owners, retirees, that kind of thing. Those are my core clients. And they don't know anything about triple net. When you contact these companies, you're not talking to the senior directors. They're taking big portfolios, and in meetings, they're having the junior agent to grunt, prepare the offering memorandum or the flyer, and take these buyer calls, because they don't have time to answer their questions. And they can't stand that stuff. I can tell you, I know pretty much everyone almost in the whole industry, and they don't want to do that. And so they're just pumping, whether it's a good, bad, crap property, they're just pumping out whatever that developer's giving them to sell in the portfolio, or the insurance company or the REIT or whatever. And so what I do is different. Like, people sign an agreement to exclusively work with me, and they're through the whole process, even though we have a commercial retail attorney, we had the title work, all that stuff. I'm there reviewing it alongside of it, my knowledge and wisdom that I've developed over 21 years of doing this. I have a whole systematic process. And so I have pre-market, off-market contacts, and I have a deep network across the country of, in one state in Texas, I'll have 300 and something different companies and property owners just for triple net alone. And so I'm looking for the diamonds for the buyers, because since I'm already wealthy, I don't want to sell them some marginal piece of crap or tell them like, hey, buy this just because it's in their price range. and then it goes dark in so many years, they're losing money and they want me to come back and fix it. I don't want to deal with that. I'm already wealthy. I want a peaceful life. I don't want to deal with that. Whereas these other listing brokers, they're living hand to mouth. They have to fight between, part of it is they don't have the wisdom or the knowledge to properly evaluate whether something's good or not. And the other part of it is because of their split structure, they're not making any money and they have to sell stuff to survive, And so that's just kind of the people that do what I do, that's a buyer specialist, there may be a handful of us in the business that work on that side.
And that makes sense. And when I talk about what's the secret sauce of your company? One of the secret sauces of your company is what you just described. Right? Your depth of experience in having done this for 21 years, your desire to actually be able to bring a quality product to your buyer, because that is who you're serving as your buyer. You're not just selling something to sell something. You're not incentivized by that. And also you're able to keep enough of the money that you're actually financially independent. So you're not having to generate business just to generate business. What else do they think that people should know about the secret sauce of why Joel Owens? I can think of 2 more things just from us talking earlier, but you tell me.
I would just say it's naturally ingrained in me just because of what I've lived in my life, to do the hard work, and give them the result that they want. And I'm a no nonsense kind of person, right? So some people kind of beat around the bush, and kind of tiptoe through the tulips. If you're that kind of buyer that you want me to do that all the time, I'm not for you. That's not, but some people love it and people can't stand it. Some people find it refreshing where I'm just to the point. This is what it is. It's not a good property because A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I don't pull any punches. And the other thing that's different about me is, I've learned over time, it's 80% relationships and 20% business. You got to have the wisdom, you got to have the knowledge and everything. But I like to tell people I like to make lifelong connections. So I'm someone that just wants a one-off transaction and they just want to do text and, I don't know anything about them. When I find someone a property and someone's bringing me something off market, I've had that relationship with that other listing broker for decades of time. If I don't know who you are and how qualified you are and how serious you are, I don't want to work with you. That's a young person's game that's been in the business 2 or 3 years that has nothing else going on. I don't have time for that, right? So I put them through a whole system. They go to my website, they fill out the form, we review their financials and their net worth. I get them pre-qualified with my capital markets mortgage broker that's been in banking for 40 years. He used to work for the large banks and went out and started his own capital markets company. I've closed many dozens of deals with him. The rate never retrades. What it is, that's what it closes at. That's why I like to use him. And he's very communicative and does a good job. And so I really want to talk to the people, are they at their early life, midlife, later life, and what are their goals? How much do you make from your job or business? How fast do you want to get from point A to point B? And some people want to own direct, where I help them buy a property. Some want to investigate or some want to invest in my syndication side. And then some want to do both. They want to blend the returns and do both. And it's just an individual preference as to what I want to do.
I love the no bullshit, because when you get into triple net, that's kind of when you need to just go look. It is what it is. It's a financial choice. It's a financial investment. Yes, it has a lot to do with people on the back end, whether it's a Rite Aid, which is having lots of problems these days, or whether it's a medical facility, or whether it's an industrial park. It is serving people, but your ownership of it has to do with your capacity to run a business and to run it like a business, and to understand that is the value of a triple net, is that you're able to have a business to business relationship with your tenant. Your tenant is running. That's why triple net works so well, right? At least that's my opinion. Why don't you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So I have what's called my 5 layers of guarantee. That's in my book. So basically, someone that's Standard & Poor's, investment grade credit, rated on Wall Street, triple B- or better, over the last 50 years has a default rate of about less than 1%. So a lot of businesses have cycles to them where they go boom bust. Something's the latest, hottest business. It'll have maybe a 20-year cycle, 50-year cycle, 100-year cycle. And so you're buying that security of that business. So if it's investment grade credit with a low default rate, those are typically the lower cap rate properties that you buy with a long-term lease. Because if someone's kind of in a wealth preservation mode, in the triple net, the inflation, if you take the high and low years out over the last 50 years, it's about 2.75% annual inflation. When you take out the negative years and then the super high inflation years and just get an average. And so in triple net, if you can buy a property, say the interest rate's at a 6 and you're buying something at a 6.5 cap rate and you're putting 40% down, your cash on cash return in your pocket before the mortgage pay down might be 5% or so to start. And then with the mortgage pay down, the principal, and then the tax depreciation benefits, you could be at an overall 9-10% annual return, be totally passive. Literally, you do nothing in triple net when it's an absolute triple net lease. It's mailbox money. You might update financials to the lender if you got a loan once a year or forward a property tax bill. You might do an hour a year's worth of time. And so the 5 levels is there's an investment grade credit tenant. Then below that would be a large private company where they've got maybe like 500 locations back in the lease. And then you can have a subsidiary of the investment grade credit tenant where they're backing maybe like 5,000 locations. Then you could have a large franchisee. Then you could have a small franchisee. And then you could have a non-franchisee mom and pop tenant on the spectrum. So as you go down with the little to no credit, you, the borrower, have to be much stronger to qualify. So like if it's investment grade credit tenant, they put like 75-80% on qualifying for the loan on the tenant, 20-25% on you. When it's a large franchisee, maybe 50-50. When it's a small franchisee or mom and pop, they're going to put like 80% on you and 20% on the tenant, because I know the tenant has a high chance of going dark. Even if they sign a 15-year lease, they might last years, they go out, right? So then that goes into another concept that I created where this, comes back from my development days and being an investor myself, is dirt first. And so even if you have a national credit grade tenant and the lease is good, it's landlord friendly, it's still got to be in a good location, because if that business cycles out, what rent per square foot are they paying in the market for that building, that box size? If it's at market or below market and it's in a growing market, then even if they go dark with your tenant improvements and leasing commissions and attorney's fees and down rent time, you can backfill that space and be made close to whole, or even have a profit if the rents have gone up. What you got to watch out for is sometimes these developers might be doing $300,000 worth of tenant improvements to do a new build with, and then the tenant requests more tenant improvements, where the developer throws in another $300,000 for $600,000, and then when that developer says, "Okay, I'll do that, but you got to pay $5 or $10 more per foot above market," and the market eventually catch up. Well, now you got an overinflated lease. That developer puts that net operating income out at a higher value when they go to sell it after they develop it, and they get maybe like $700,000 for that extra $300,000 that they spent with tenant improvements. And so those are the kind of things that I know just from being in the business a long time that people don't know. They think buying triple net is like buying a car. You just like buy anything, it's going to make money. And people can lose like millions of dollars with this stuff, like any other asset class. You have to know someone that knows what they're doing. And I take it seriously, right? Like I'm a multimillionaire myself, and I know how long the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make that money, right? Whereas the other brothers don't. And so I take like every dollar seriously, and I know like some of this is people's life savings, or they've been a doctor for 20 years and they're retiring and they want to live on that passive income. Like, I don't want to sell them a piece of junk, So I'm very different than a lot of other people out there, and I have a different experience level than a lot of other.
Well, that's part of what I was thinking about when I said the secret sauce. One of the things I'm aware of is that you're also an investor. So you have developed and crafted your own portfolio. And like you said, the blood, sweat, and tears that is behind that. Like, I am an investor, right? I'm a real estate investment advisor. I primarily advise on residential and commercial residential, right? Multifamily, single family residentials. I work with mom and pop investors anywhere from as low as 250,000, but not normally, up to about $50 million in equity, and helping them create and diversify a portfolio from the top down and deciding how to use the tool of real estate to help them fulfill their vision and purpose, and having that real estate portfolio support them and where they're going, right? And in that can fit a triple net property beautifully if what they're looking for is that type of investment, especially the larger investors. But I have developed my own real estate portfolio. I know what it takes to have that design thought from the beginning of what I'm choosing, where am I going in 20 years, and designing it today, and understanding what I'm developing towards. And what's the sweat and the blood and the tears and the cost of being thoughtless about it, of assuming there's no cycles, of getting into a ground up development or a condo conversion, and how that can go wrong, and how the timelines can eat you up really quickly, right? And how
the construction loans, the market interest rate can change in the next phase of construction. There's all kind of stuff, there's different levels of upside to downside risk factors. And so triple net along the spectrum is, I call it an active to passive conversion. So what typically happens is some people that have sold their business for a bunch of money, or they're a surgeon that makes $1 million a year or something, they can skip all the residential and just go into commercial and just be passive with it, and because they don't have time to mess with it. The other people, they generally go on a path. They go from owning houses in the hood that are a pain in the ass. They think it's high yield, the capex eats them up, and then they go to the nicer areas where they get good equity growth. And they go to the big multifamily buildings, and they go to the mobile home parks, and they go to the less, less active, more passive retail shopping centers, and then they go to the triple net. The one thing I would say with investors they often don't think about is they're in the moment, and they might be awesome at multifamily or awesome at mobile home parks or whatever it is, but that's an active asset on some level, on some spectrum. And so what they don't often think about is if they passed away unexpectedly or died today, their family members sometimes don't even like real estate, or they don't even understand what real estate is, right? And so if you're a significant other, you pass away, now you're depending on these people to run your multifamily buildings or your mobile home parks or self-storage or whatever it is, and you don't know that asset class, you can get robbed blind, or you can sell for a lot less than what you thought you could get. And in your property, the operations, it starts declining because you don't know how to properly make those decisions. And so part of your portfolio investing is taking some of that, your investments, and converting it with 1031 exchange into the triple net passive stuff as a base, so that if you passed away, it would give a base of income to your significant other, your partner, that is just mailbox money. They don't need to know how it operates. If they've got 12 years remaining on a lease, it's a credit grade tenant, they get that mailbox money, and they have some time to breathe while they figure out what to do with the other stuff that's more hands-on, and instead of just automatically like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to do this stuff, The other part that you can do that's good is you can do estate planning. A lot of these kids with wealthy parents, they are usually trying to kiss their ass all the time, or they're trying to it's true that they're kissing their ass all the time, or they're waiting for them to die, right? Like some of these parents say, like, don't ask me about the money anymore. When I die, you can do whatever you want with it. I don't care. And that's the worst possible answer you can give. So what some of them do is they set up a conditional trust. So basically, you own the Walgreens, what you tell your kids now is you're like, hey, look, I have these conditional trust. If I pass away today, you're not getting all access to this money. You're going to get a stipend, and you're not going to get access to the money until you hit certain metrics to get a certain age, have a successful business for so many years, get a college degree, blah, 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 right? And so these young kids know, well, crap, whether they're alive or they're dead, I'm not going to get access to this money until I do these steps. And they go start doing those steps. And along the way, what they started with to try to get the money, by the time they finish those steps to get access to the money, they've changed as a person through that journey. they've had to do, right?
Perfect description. They've changed as a person in their journey. And that was where I was going to go was, as a parent, and you're a parent too, right? As a parent, right, the hope is that our children discover who they want to be, regardless of our real estate portfolio, regardless of the wealth that the family has, that the wealth serves them in discovering who they want to be, what path they want to walk in their lives. And if you give them access to too much money too early, you de-incentivize them. But if you give them access to zero money, then they get no financial education, right? So there's this process.
Yeah, and it's funny when we go to the grocery store, the cashiers ask me what I do, and there's these 16-year-old kids or something, and they say, "Oh, your son's got it made or whatever." I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
What the hell are you talking about? No, my son's still got to go get a job. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Career is still required.
If I see max effort from him, like truly trying, then I have the means to help him and boost what his max effort is. Then I'll help him and give him a hand up. But if he's just like being lazy or wanting a handout, that's not gonna. I'm not gonna rob him of that self-mastery, because once I'm gone, I'm not gonna be there to prop him up. So
you said it perfectly. Rob him of the self-mastery. Self-mastery I think you and I can agree 1,000% on that one. That would be the thing that I focus on with my daughter is, where is her self-mastery? Where is her passion? Who does she want to be? How does she want to show up? Because that's what she's going to need to do in her life. And I don't even know if she's worked out the fact that someday she might inherit some money. I don't know that she's worked that out as to how meaningful that is to her. She's so focused on, I want to be a scientist, and don't talk that real estate shit to me, Mom. I want to be a scientist. Get out of my way. She's so busy doing that I'm like, oh, you're right. Let me get out of your way. Like, sure. Right?
A lot of times too, like the young kids, they make a mistake of trying to follow something that pays the most money. Like they'll research a job in the market, and this pays this much per hour and that pays that much per hour. The money, you'll get burnt out within a year if you're not passionate about it. So what I tell kids to do is write down your top 4 things that you love, their hobbies or whatever. Then research which of those markets pay what money over a trajectory of your career owning a business. See which ones are in decline or stagnating, and see which ones are in high demand. Go for the one that you love, that's in high demand, that's growing, and keep the other 3 as hobbies. That's what I tell them. And just
that. Can I have permission to steal that? It's good. It's good. So one of the things we talked about early before I turned on the video was that even triple net investing, residential investing, all of it exists against a background. And the background to me is the economy that we're residing in. And it's one of the things that I feel like if you're really looking for somebody to be a deep expert in the field, I've learned that I need to have a connection to the economy, what it's doing and why it's doing it. I've lived through 3 downturns now, the 80s, the 90s, the 80s, 90s, right? The Reagan with his high interest rates. And then I lived through 2007, 8, and 9, where I thought I was brilliant. And then I discovered very quickly I was not brilliant, that I was an idiot. and then what looked like what might be a cycle in 2015, we're not really a cycle, right? But now we're in this one right now, right? And so we're in a cycle right now, even whether it's been declared or not. We're heading into one, or it will be declared that we're in one. So why don't you cover, because when I asked you the question, you had a very, I thought, eloquent response having to do with what are the backgrounds you need to pay attention to when it comes to triple net.
Yeah, so there's the, so the first way I kind of explain investing to people is, you're starting out and like, here's a big mountain that's way up here. And then it's got different valleys, and then you start, and then you go up, and you're at the top of a cycle, and you're at the top of the peak, and then it's going to go down again. Now, when it goes down again into that valley, it's not going to be where you first started out, but it's going to be higher, and it's just going to go up like this over time. The key is where people mess up is they get over leveraged in a bad part of the cycle, and they can't hold on until the recovery comes back up. And that's where people get their ass kicked, and they don't have the experience to know like how to properly plan for seeing what cycle everything is at, because you have so many things going on. You have the economic cycle, so you have the United States cycle, and then you have the global economic cycle and how the other countries are doing, around the world. And then you have the individual asset class cycle. Then you have what's cycling within individual markets. And then you have the debt cycle, like what are the interest rates doing? And so you have all these different things going on at different periods of time, and you have different real estate asset classes cycling at different periods of time. Take, for instance, multifamily. I'm on a forum, like 15,000 posts and everything. And I told them, multifamily cycles. It has, it's a game of chairs. Don't massage debt to make a deal work, because a lot of these multifamily syndicators, they'll leverage it up to the hilt because they don't have to raise as much money. And by raising it to the hilt, they can try to do on the pro forma 1 or 2% higher preferred returns to suck in the people. We have a saying, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right? And so, they buy into that. Well, now these syndicators are hemorrhaging. They're losing tens of millions of dollars of the investors' money, right? So my first rule is a deal has to stand on its own. If you have to massage debt and do interest only, or all this kind of exotic crap or short-term debt to make the numbers work for you, then you're overpaying for that property. It's not the right property. So when the interest rates were down at 3.5% and triple net was trading at 5 caps, I had my clients get the 10-year fixed debt at that time. So they could get 20, 30 basis points lower and have a floating or only do a 5-year. But because I know in the real estate cycle period, give yourself the max amount of time. So your income, because I look at like their income from their job or the business versus the level of property they're buying. They're buying a $3 million property. They're putting 1.7 million down. They've got $1 million and something left to pay off. They're making 400,000, 500,000 a year, plus the stuff from the other investments. If the interest rates go up high unexpectedly, like double, like they did, they can pay it off early, and it's not a big deal for them, right? So I look at how much they have to stretch to buy that deal, and should they be buying that deal. I get people all the time. They're like, I got $500,000 and I want to buy a triple net. Well, no, you don't. Like a $1 million triple net property is like $100,000 house in residential, is what I tell them. Like, it's going to be a weak tenant, middle tiny town, and it's going to be a bad investment for you. You're not going to be. I tell them you much rather take that money and buy a nice quadruplex somewhere in like a urban core area or something, for that kind of price point, right? Because it doesn't. The other thing that's kind of changed with the market is when I was at a 5 cap, people would buy stuff, because they got a 3.5% interest rate, they can make the deal work. So I'll have a dentist that used to have like 600,000 and they call me back now, like 3 or 4 years later, okay, I got $1.5 million to put down. Well, the problem is in triple net, stuff that's 3 million and below, you have 70% cash buyers and 30% use finance. When you go to $5, $6, $7 million triple net, the buyer pool gets smaller and it reverses. You have more people using debt than paying cash, because they don't want that concentration of cash all in one property. They want to geo-diversify. But what I call in the smaller range, older retiree buyers, their net worth is 3 or 4 million. They want to be one and done with a triple net. They might not be taking on debt, and the bank's paying them 4%, and they buy it at like a 5 to 6 cap, and they live off the money until they kick the bucket and leave it to their kids. And so in that range, it's very hard to buy something when the interest rate's at a 6.5%, and you're buying something at a 6 cap because all these cash buyers, and you want to use debt. And so in that situation, your cash on cash might be 4%. So in that instance, what I tell them, if it's not 1031, they can invest in my syndications. My syndications, I don't take on debt. Yeah. So my syndications, I do cash. I don't use debt. Just to make it streamlined, because even if I have a great lender with a great loan program, they can get full on that allocation of percentage of triple net versus agricultural or whatever they're doing. And then now they're not lending anymore. Now I got to go find another lender that I like with the parameters that I like. And I got to do all this whole BS crap again with different loan covenants and all this stuff. I'd rather just take the money from the limited partner investors. When I pay cash, we can decide if we ever want to sell whenever it's advantageous to us. We're not a slave to the debt cycle. I've seen people now, like I'll give you for instance, Walgreens became non-investment grade credit. they have a credit. Some of these people that use commercial mortgage-backed security loans instead of the regular credit union or bank loans, there's a credit clause in there where if it's downgraded, they can impose a lockbox and sweep the account. Not just what's owed for the mortgage, but the whole enchilada, the whole thing. So now they're sweeping millions of dollars of income, and these people are making zero cash flow. And so even if they sell at a loss, they just want to get out of it and get rid of the CMBS loan because they want to put that money back out working again. Because the CMBS is like the equity group, the sales approved that Walgreens is going to be sold to this equity group. It's not happening at the end of this year, and so they can hold that lockbox account for a couple of years just to see how that equity group operates. They can trap your money for years while they're waiting with that covenant. So it's just, I like paying cash. Typically what I pay is it's a minimum investment for accredited investors of $200,000 at a time. So I'll set up I won't do a fund. I'll set up an individual LLC. I'll put it under contract. I'll raise whatever it is, $2 or $3 million. The accredited investors put in a minimum of 200,000 or more at a time. Some of them put in $1 million, $500,000, whatever it is. I start out with an 8% preferred return. Buying short-term leases with maybe 4 or 5 years remaining instead of the 15 years. I'm getting them at a 9% plus cap rate or higher typically.
Because the short-term lease, but then you have the expertise to be able to release it up when that lease comes.
Yeah. So I bought dozens of dark properties over the last 2 or 3 years that didn't have any income with them at all, or they're vacant out parcel. I made good money on those, but the problem is that you got to manage this building for 7 or 8 months before I get money out of it, right? And the tenant, instead of leasing it up, they wanted to buy it. So Whataburger developer wanted to buy it. If I buy it for $500,000 and they pay me $1 million in 7 months for it, and they put another $600,000 into it, they want to open it and prove up the sales for 2 years and then do a sell lease back for 3-point-something million, sell the real estate and the building back on a lease, and they make the money themselves, right? And so like 70% wanted to buy it, the end user tenant or the preferred developer, and 30% wanted to lease up. Well, me as a broker, if I'm making a deal where I'm making $200,000 in 2 months or something on a deal where someone's buying to own direct and I'm brokering that deal, well, I don't want to manage a building for 8 months that's vacant and deal with winterizing it, homeless people, and doing the grass and all kind of crazy stuff, the taxes, all that stuff, when my GP split is like 50% of the upside. So if the upside's 400,000, I made 200,000 for 7 or 8 months of an aggravation of a building, right? So with the blend and extends, I can buy something that's generating income today, high income, but then I've got 2, 3, 4 years, the tenant's taking care of the property, paying the taxes, all that. I've got time to either negotiate an extension with them that's advantageous toward me, that improves the value, or I can backfill it with another tenant. Like even if they tell me, hey, I'm not renewing the lease, I can, with a year left of their lease obligation, I can be going out there negotiating with another tenant, getting a forward commitment lease to get someone in there right away. So I've got a whole.
Yeah. It's amazing. You're right. We could go on for another hour and we would still continue to discover new information. Like we haven't even talked about the vulnerability of owning triple net when it comes to vacancies, right? Because there's a need to be able to manage that. But I'm afraid we are out of time. So I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, listeners. You're just going to have to reach out to Joel directly. If you're looking for this level of expertise, if you're looking to get into commercial triple nets, you're a more mature investor and you're able to put down $2 or $3 million on a property, you would truly want to be able to consider triple net as a portion of your portfolio or that safety net. And Joel's going to be your guy, who's obviously I don't even have to say it. He's proven himself in this conversation, guys. So Joel, how do people get a hold of you if they want to either work with you as an agent or they want to work with you as a consultant? I know you do either one, or they want to invest in your syndication. So you've got 3 different ways people can work with you. How do people get a hold of you?
So they go to nnninvest.com and there's a Start Today form. And on the form, you can say what you're interested in, the consulting or the own direct or the investing in the syndications or both. And then you put your information and your email with contact information. And then we reach out for an initial call to see if we're a good fit to work together and to talk about your specific goals. And then there's an exclusive agreement. The syndication side, there's a subscription agreement. the offering, the operating agreement. There's not an exclusive agreement for that, but on the indirect side, there's an exclusive agreement you sign to work with me. And I've got my 2 books on my website. You just put your information in. Those are free. Those are in PDF format, and you can download those and read those at your leisure. But the triple net stuff, I didn't even get to retail centers or any of that stuff. I cover maybe like 1% of the stuff today. Like that's why I'm saying, like, it's passive. It's awesome to own, but there's a process to buying it the right way.
The right way is hugely, and then a process to managing it once you have it. So, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. I'm so excited to have another highly qualified guest on my show. You'll get another installment in 2 weeks. Joel, thank you so very much.